Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to start by saying hi and welcome to everybody. I'm going to try to keep my story relatively short, or my introduction relatively short, but it's very hard to compact 50 years, literally, and I'm going to round off numbers into just a few minutes, but I will try my best. We're going to be talking about the Jewish deaf, but we're also going to be talking about the Hebrew Seminary, and maybe I should have put the Hebrew Seminary first, because the Hebrew Seminary is a unique institution. This is Jesse.
Oh yeah, Jesse is, yeah, my partner. He can come.
Okay. Hey, Jesse. So in years past,
if it would help you to make me a co-host, I'd be happy to take away the work from you of letting people in, so you don't have to interrupt yourself.
That's fine. If you know how to do it.
Oh, it might be more work than it's worth in that case. Yeah, I just wanted to offer.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's just a click away. In years past, the Jewish deaf were neglected. Period. Actually, and I hope I'm not insulting anybody, in the various mistakes that exist in the Torah, or short-sightedness in the Torah, the deaf are mentioned specifically as being exempt from doing mitzvot. They're not to abstain from trying, and they're more rewarded if they do, which is really ironic because to me, it's just nobody knew how to communicate with the deaf. And in the days of the Torah, why aren't the blind listed in the Torah? Why aren't other conditions, quote unquote? So in the early 70s, Rabbi Douglas Goldhammer was a student at the Hebrew Union College at Cincinnati, and he was assigned as a student rabbi to a deaf Jewish social group, which was in some ways national. It was called the Hebrew Association of the Deaf, and they were more of a social group. He came monthly, and over time created a more Jewish atmosphere, a more service-oriented atmosphere to the Hebrew Association of the Deaf of Chicago, and eventually formed Congregation B'nai Shalom in Skokie, which is the only self-contained synagogue of the deaf in the world. There are other Jewish organizations that hold services in New York and LA, but we have our own building. And then over time, Rabbi Goldhammer realized that the deaf were still being underserved nationally, internationally, and I'll round off the numbers. Pushing 30 years ago, we started the Hebrew Seminary, which is a unique institution. You'll learn more about it from Charlene, and I'm going to introduce Charlene Brooks and Sarah Daybrook, who are two of our esteemed students, rabbinical students, with remarkable stories that you will hear shortly. And Sarah is herself deaf, and Paula Blumberg is an interpreter. And for those who may not have worked with interpreters or seen interpreters, they are simply that. They are not participants. They are to interpret for those who require it. So just added to my bio, I'm a founding member of the board, going on 30 years. My older daughter is deaf, lives in Rochester, New York, which by some accounts has the largest deaf community in the country per capita. And she is a remarkable young lady. So I think that's my introduction, and I would like to hand it off to Sari to introduce herself and to talk about her story. Take it away, Sari.
Thank you, Alan. And thank you, Paula, for interpreting for me. And Char, she is my fellow student with me, and we've been together since forever. And I am proud to be here today and to see all of you new people. And Tom, hi Tom, hi.
I'm sorry, Tom Giller is the chairman of our board. How could I forget? Sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce Tom. So.
Oh, why don't you introduce him? Tom Giller. Go right ahead.
No, I did.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, sorry, I'm deaf, so I didn't really hear that part. Anyway, let me explain a little bit about myself. And Paula, you're welcome to sign for me to kind of model what that looks like, because I'm not going to sign yet. I had wrote a little something. First of all, my name is Sari Daybook. And I'm asking Paula to interpret, because this is what it looks like at the Hebrew Seminary when you have a student who is deaf or hard of hearing, or when you have a professor who is deaf or hard of hearing. We always provide interpreting. My name is Sari Daybook, and I am 37. I'll be honest, I'm going to be 38 next month, but let's just say I'm going to be 37 for now. Are we the same age? Are we almost? No? Oh, well, thank you. You make me feel good. I feel young. So we'll stay at 37 for now. I was born deaf. I wasn't supposed to hear at all. I wasn't even supposed to speak, nor function like a normal child. Now, this was 38 years ago. All right, oops, 37 years ago, sorry. It was rough. It was a huge struggle. My parents were 22. My grandparents were still helping. It takes a village to raise a child, right? And then all of a sudden you find out your child is acting a little different at 12 months old. What do you do? Is Sari going to be able to talk? Is she going to be able to hear? Will she be able to learn? Now, coming from a Jewish background, very Jewish religious grandparent, my grandma thought, is Sari going to learn religion? Judaism? Is she going to know what God is? Is she going to understand? Is she going to get bar mitzvah? What? Our firstborn granddaughter, the whole world went tumbling down. But I'll tell you, my family never lost faith in God. They never lost trust in God. And that's something we learn in the seminary, is having faith and having trust in God is so important. Because when I was about 5 years old, well, then I eventually got hearing aids and speech therapy. And it was chosen that I wasn't needing sign language just yet, because I was able to hear. I was able to speak. After years of speech therapy, we're talking years. Private, and my parent and my grandparent all had to do their homework. It was a family, like I thought, it takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a community to raise a deaf child. And that's why I'm here. When I was 5 years old, my grandmother, she had just moved to Skokie with my family, and she was looking for a new synagogue to work as a secretary. That was her passion she's been doing for years. She loved being a secretary for synagogue. And that's when she found congregation B'nai Shalom. And with the back burner, not really the back burner, but more like, I want to make sure I find a synagogue, a show, old-fashioned Jew, a show that will embrace me and my religion. And that's when I start signing here, because B'nai Shalom was my first deaf exposure. I didn't know thing. I didn't know Hebrew. I didn't know prayer. And then what I learned, I was so grateful for my grandmother to take the job because I grew. I wore many, many hats. Thank you for interpreting continuously, Paula. I appreciate that. I wore many, many hats here. My sister, first of all, was baby named here. I'm not going to say how many years ago. I don't want to make her feel old, but it was 32 years ago. She was baby named here. I was bar mitzvah here. I did my mitzvah project here. I was the teacher's aide. It got so big that they had to make a confirmation program. And during that time, the seminary was growing for deaf and hearing. Then I became a choir coordinator, diner for Charlene Brooke Klinkman, who is going to be introducing next. And now I'm a rabbinical student. And I am studying not the deaf Torah, but I am studying to help other families embrace religion through their children who have special needs. I work with special needs right now, transition program. We serve 3 deaf students. And B'nai Shalom made me realize who I wanted to be. And I wanted to serve and help and be a rabbi for families who have children that they want to have religion and faith in God. And be a part of the deaf community and the hearing community and the Jewish community. Thank you. And if you have any questions about my deafness, about my speech, please, I want you to ask. I want you to be comfortable with our community, with our culture, and why Hebrew Seminary is so important to not only the deaf, but to the hearing, all of us together. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. And if you have questions, let me know.
And let me just say, I didn't say, the chat room is open if you have any questions. And of course, we will have.
Oh, wonderful.
We will have, you know, an open forum discussion Q&A afterwards. So now.
That's wonderful. Thank you for letting me know. I'm glad that there's questions already.
Right. It's a honor again to introduce Charlene Brooks.
Thank you. And I just want to say, Sari, your enthusiasm it's catchy and it's beautiful.
Thank you, Char.
Yeah, I'm not going to cry.
And we always motivate each other. You are
yeah.
beautiful.
She stands next to me. She stands next to me interpreting as I sing because I am the cantorial soloist at our temple. So I'm going to reintroduce myself. My name is Charlene Brooks Klinkman. Now, Klinkman is my married name because I've gone by Charlene Brooks since I was 25. And because in addition to being the cantorial soloist at Congregation B'nai Shalom here in Skokie for 25 years, and now a rabbinical student, I'm one thesis away from my ordination. Yeah, I'm also a professional singer and performer and have been most of my life. So 26 years ago, I joined B'nai Shalom along with lots of my friends and families, and it happens to be conveniently located 1 block from my home. And we all joined as a group, and we were all hearing, and we all put our kids in the Sunday school. We became part of a very active and wonderful parents group, and my 2 kids, they made lifelong friends there. So my daughter, who is now 27, was so caught up with the sign language aspect of our services, because all of our services are signed. She realized that becoming a sign language interpreter was what she wanted to study. And she did. And she graduated from Columbia College with a degree in ASL. And it's pretty cool because we can communicate in voice and in sign. And people get pissed because they don't know what we're saying. So it's okay. So it's our little secret language for those who don't know. So after being a congregant for a couple of years, those many years ago, the rabbi discovered that I was a professional singer. And he asked if I could sing something at the Hanukkah program. And this led eventually to my leading a Yom HaShoah service, because both of my parents were Holocaust survivors. And this led Rabbi Goldhammer later to become the cantorial soloist there. Now, my background did not help me in any way, shape, or form in this, because I was raised very culturally as a Jew, but I never attended Hebrew school or services since the age of 8 when my brother achieved bar mitzvah. And my siblings and I were always aware that we were Jews, but I never really knew what that meant. I had no real relationship with God, and I didn't understand what being a Jew meant to me, other than knowing that it was a really difficult road to travel. The joy that I have come to feel after I began singing on the Bima and learning and growing in my spirituality and understanding of Judaism came after I started working there. This may seem odd to you, but one of my main directions after being ordained is to officiate at funerals. I realized I needed to join the seminary if I truly wanted to accomplish my goal. And what a great opportunity to learn what it truly means to be a Jew and to teach others as well. And learn I have. You know, I've done many, many funerals alongside our rabbi for all these years, and I've officiated many on my own. But after ordination as a rabbi, I will be able to be there for so many more people at this very special time of need in their lives. So coming from a family where my ancestors, every member of my mother's and father's family could not have a funeral, and they could not have a proper time of mourning. I am passionate about giving honor and respect and dignity to those who've passed away and comfort to those who've lost their loved ones. Now, there's a lot more I want to accomplish in my rabbinate, such as counseling those who want to seek help, especially in their spiritual path. You know, I've been studying Kabbalah for the last 20 years with Rabbi Goldhammer, our rabbi who was an expert, a scholar in authentic Kabbalistic meditations and healing prayers. I will continue to work with people who want to practice this as well. And I've done healing prayers with some of my friends, and I'm really happy to say it works. I never expected, after years of singing in theaters and clubs and events, that cantoring and then studying at the Hebrew Seminary, soon to be ordained as a rabbi, would be my life. But I'm so grateful that it is. And later I will discuss the opportunities that we have there. So.
Thank you. Before we go to our next segment, I want to emphasize a few things. One is the seminary, of course, pre-COVID, is housed in the synagogue, B'nai Shalom. We are a bona fide institute of higher learning. Our 5-year curriculum is on par with any seminary, non-Orthodox seminary. We are inclusive, but in addition to the curriculum, we teach Kabbalah, we teach healing prayer. Rabbi Goldhammer, and you can Google him, it's I think 1M Goldhammer. It's written 2 books. One is called This Is For Everyone. The second one, I'm sorry, escapes me, both about healing prayer. And we, this is a good question. Does the seminary belong to any denomination? We are absent of labels. Our faculty, to answer the question, our faculty ranges from Reform to Orthodox. Our students, the same. And we teach Kabbalah. And the thing is that we are the only seminary on the planet whose ordinees learn to sign, learn about deaf culture, learn to minister to the deaf. Yes, we would like to clone B'nai Shalom in different cities around the world, but certainly the outreach to the deaf community is something that all of our ordinees, and we're way past, we're pushing 25. We're somewhere in the 22 rabbis that we have ordained, all of whom have significant positions, either as pulpit rabbis, as chaplains in major colleges, and beyond. So I want to emphasize that we are an institute of higher learning. And one of the things that is really exemplary to demonstrate is the Shema, because the Shema contains, of course, the preeminent prayer of our religion, but it also is a great way to teach. So I'm going to hand it back to Sari and Shar to discuss the Shema and to present it to you.
So as a way of incorporating ASL into our prayers, we want to share with you how we sign and chant along with us the Shema. And I would love for you to sign this, all of you to sign this with us. See, ASL is a picture language. It's not a word for word way of communicating. So we have all learned, and Paula, you can sign for me, "Hear, O Israel," in English, "the Lord our God, the Lord is one." But when we sing and sign this at our services in our seminary, we learn to understand that "Hear, O Israel" is not appropriate for our deaf students and our members. We want to be inclusive. So we focus on the intention of the prayer, not the literal words. We sign, pay attention. And not just, like in a light-hearted, boring, pay attention. We do it with kavanah, with true understanding what this prayer is saying. It's like, pay attention. It's not hear, O Israel. Understand, pay attention, Israel. So we'd like to teach you the rest of these signs so you can feel what we feel when we do this prayer. And to be honest for you, honest with you, it's really hard for me to do this prayer without signing, because that's how ingrained it has become. It's true. I want to share with you it when my daughter was very young and she was having a hard time falling asleep, we would say the Shema, and she would say it, and then she says, "I'm too tired, Mom." So she would just sign it. And I'm talking a little girl laying in her bed, and she would just sign it. And I was just like, okay. So, she got it, she gets it. And I just want you to have this.
Can I add one thing, Char?
I'm going to ask you to teach.
Can I add one thing that the two of us learned? Do you remember, Char, that Rabbi Goldhammer always said that the Shema is one of the most important prayers? And that's why you're teaching it tonight. And that's why your daughter fell asleep to it, because it was so inspiring. I wanted to point that out, that it's one of the most important prayers. That's why Shar, it's really emphasizing the meaning.
I'm going to ask you, Sari, to teach. We're just going to do, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Sure.
Just that much. Okay.
I follow your lead, of course. We're a team. We've been working together for a very long time.
A long time, which is interesting because I'm only, 25 years old. So go ahead.
Yeah. I would.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Sure.
I would like.
So if you could show them the signs.
Yeah, and can you just join with me too, Char, and all of you join us, Tom and Alan.
And
So
then we'll
why
chant.
don't you start with the Shema? Pay attention because the deaf people can't hear. You can't say hear. Hear what? What does that mean? No, you hear Israel.
Yeah.
You focus. That's your main priority, Israel.
Israel.
The Lord.
With a
Lord.
It's the letter L.
Okay? Now, L. It's English. And we also call him the King of the universe, which we don't pray the King, but this is a sign for King. So when we do Lord, we bring it down to Lord.
Okay.
Like a king, like a throne, like one of those reps. Lord, our God. Is the Israel? Oh, we'll get to the questions later. Wait a minute. Pay attention, Israel. The Lord, our God. Keep going. It's hard.
Yeah. Okay.
The Lord, our
My
God.
God.
King. The Lord,
Yeah.
our God.
Okay.
And the Lord is one. Pray. When we do pray.
You know what, Sari? Maybe we'll just stop with the first part.
Oh, that's fine. I'm so sorry.
Easy.
I misunderstood.
It'll be easy.
Again,
Okay.
when you have a hearing impairment, it gets difficult. And that's why the Hebrew Seminary is so important, because in the temple we help each other. So Shai, thank you. So let's start from the beginning again, okay? Oh, hear Israel. Pay attention, Israel.
Israel's with the pinky.
Israel is that. It's I, and it's a state. A city. So pay attention, Israel. The Lord, our God. God. Let's try again. The Lord, our God. And we'll do one more line. The Lord is one.
So now, we're gonna chant it and sign at the same time. Oh, I'm sorry,
That
Paula.
sounds like a wonderful plan.
Okay, join in if you want. Please sign and chant with us in Hebrew. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Yay!
Wow. Oh, and there's another thing that I want to emphasize. This, we use it, it's called the deaf clap, meaning that people who are deaf and hard of hearing, or some people might not hear the clapping, you go like this, so people could see you in the audience cheering for you to show that they are proud of you. And we do that regularly at the Hebrew Seminary and at B'nai Shalom.
There have been just a few questions I want to address. One is the sign Israel the prayer or the country? And in the big picture, signing is really not universal. So certainly throughout the country,
thank you for bringing that up.
Throughout the country of the United States, as there are dialects, there are also variants in sign. Signing is not universal. There's Hebrew sign, there's British sign, there's French sign, all of which have their own history. The way I put it is, if a deaf American is stuck in an elevator with a deaf Chinese person, they will get along a lot better than if a hearing American is stuck in an elevator with a hearing Chinese person. Because there is a book called Seeing Voices by Oliver Sacks, and he talks about spatial grammar, which is a wonderful idiom for that part of communication that we all use, whether it's our hands, whether it's our facial expression. But the deaf are so much more keenly aware of spatial grammar. And so when the question was asked, does one face in or out? That varies. I don't know if you noticed, but I saw recently a YouTube where—
But you're praising God. I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's
But,
all right.
Alan, I'm just supporting you.
No,
Is that when you
Go
prayed
ahead.
up, you're right. You're praising one and you're praising to God.
Yeah.
So Alan, I was just supporting you on that.
Well,
That was a really good
I
question.
need all the support I can get.
Oh my God, of course.
But I saw a YouTube recently where somebody, when they signed one, they did this to represent community and then created the one. It was just a wonderful, they did it much more gracefully than I
yeah,
can.
because the language is a living language and it's not static. And when you are creating a picture, what is your definition? Are you saying one item, one God, or one community? So there's different ways. As when we speak, there's different ways to express what we're trying to say. Right, Sari? Would you agree?
Yeah, and I was just you read my mind, because I was just gonna explain a little bit about, because I'm also a tutor and a sponsor. I'm so used to expecting people to know, so I apologize. American Sign Language, as Alan said, is not universal. It's known, but it's not universal. And as Shah was saying, it painted a picture. So when you're reading the Hebrew and it's saying specific directing, when you're signing it, you're completely translating it into English first, which still might not make sense because Hebrew is reversed sometimes. And then you have to make it make sense in ASL, just like what Alan was saying and Shah was saying. Here, Israel, it's a little offensive without being offensive.
Yeah.
Because we can't hear. I mean, I can hear right now because I'm wearing my hearing aids, but I can't. I need to look. I need to focus. My whole life, even with the Mac, I need to read people's eyes.
And may I say,
can you imagine? So it's so important to create a picture in ASL to show what it looks like because we cannot hear. And that's why I pay attention, and that's why this is God. And you can see I'm off the shuffle because it means so much to me. And ASL, and that's why being a Jewish woman and being with Shar and Alan and Tom and working together, learning that we're all the same. We're all equal. God is deaf. God is blind. God is tall. He's short. He's blind. He's bald. We're everything. So ASL is so important to create a picture to include everybody. So we translated in 3 ways. First it's Hebrew, English, and then ASL.
And when we took classes together, when we've taken classes together, Sari and I have been in several classes together.
Many classes.
Many classes. And I do want to say that the class sizes are pretty cool. I mean, sometimes they're large and sometimes they're small. And the scary part of that is there's nowhere to hide. You can't hide. If you're not if you're not prepared for class, you're in deep doo-doo because there is nowhere to hide. You can't say, you're on. Every time you go to class, you're on. And we have interpreters whenever Sari is participating in the class. And so the one thing that was so incredible about that experience, even though I've been part of, this world for a long time, is that it's always about the intention, about the spirituality, about the meaning, the deeper meaning. It's never word for word. And is it okay if I talk a little bit about my experiences at the?
Yeah, let me just say,
Okay.
as the host, I'm also in charge of the clock. That I want to just get to these two questions, and then we can get to.
Yeah, go ahead. We answer a few questions.
Is it difficult finding interpreters?
Can I answer?
Yeah.
Can I answer?
Please.
No, it's not difficult. Because they already are affiliated with the Chicago Hearing Society and outside freelancing interpreters. So they always have a list in their book that they call. Right now we have a permanent interpreter, and we have Paula that comes and interprets. She also interprets my high school when I work for the high school. So even in my job, we're affiliated with what's called, if you want to look it up, Chicago Hearing Society. You call them, you tell them that you need interpreters, and then they hire their interpreters through their agency or private.
Let me just add, so we can go on to the next question, that because my daughter is 41, so she was born deaf, and we've been using interpreters for a long time. Interpreters have always been available. However, in the last 10 years, 15 years, they've become a bona fide profession with degrees. And so they're interpreters.
Well, I'm talking about for B'nai Shalom.
Right.
What I'm saying is for the Hebrew Seminary, if you're talking about, is it hard to get an interpreter for the Hebrew Seminary at Congregation B'nai Shalom? It is not. It's always available. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. The next question is, have you seen the Shema signed in different ways in different sign languages? And the answer is yes. But there are always some similarities. As I said before, and Sari could address this better, although we really need to move along, that certainly a deaf person will understand the Shema in French sign or in English sign to British sign, I mean, to a certain degree, because there are universal body languages and universal nuances. It's hard to sign one differently in different languages. So the next, I'd like Shar to talk about what it's like to be a student at the Hebrew Seminary, and then Sari talk a little bit about the history of the deaf in Torah and Judaism. And then we'll open it to questions.
Okay, well, I have been a student at the Hebrew Seminary for 5 years. Like I said, I'm actually done with my classes, even though I keep zooming in to the classes that are ongoing just because I want to stay part of it. And it's so easy now because I can stay home and, still participate in class. But, and I'm working on my thesis as we speak. And, the seminary is for the hearing and the deaf. And the ages vary from people in their young 20s to people who are older, and a lot of people who are older are going there as a second career. They found they weren't happy with what they were doing in their lives and realized they just wanted to learn more and dig deeper, and they're participating. It's a nice population as well. We have students who just want to learn more about Torah, Talmud, grammar, Hebrew grammar, Kabbalah. There's classes in mysticism. There's classes. The types of classes that we teach are also practical rabbinics. How to be a rabbi, in addition to learning texts and quotes, and studying with the Chavruta. It's a very close-knit group. It's a really incredible experience being there. The teachers rabbis are from all different walks of life, different kinds of rabbis. They're definitely not one size fits all. There's Reform and Reconstructionist and conservative and Orthodox. And it is and we have a class that I've studied with Father Joe McCrone. We learn Christian, I wrote it out because I'm
Theology.
Well, theology, the New Testament, but and it's so interesting to study with. I am definitely not Orthodox, even though my mother was. I am not. She became a born-again Orthodox after she remarried, after my father died. But I learned the different perspectives of these different types of rabbis has been mind-blowing. There's anti-Zionist, there's Zionist, there's politically active, there's traditional, there's an incredible amount of energy and input that I never would have expected. It's not like any other seminary. I guarantee you that. And then when we offer Kabbalah, it's not like the Red String, and it's not pop Kabbalah, and it's not easy. The meditations are not that easy. The prayers, some of them are. It's like anything, there's different levels. But the way that we have been taught, it's from the ground up. It's studying the masters of Baal Shem Tov and Isaac Luria from the history.
Yeah.
It has been a very complete Kabbalistic approach. People who don't think they like it are addicted to it after they start. But one of the things that I love, and then I'll stop, some of the people that I've learned from there, and I wrote a list of all of them, and I'm not going to bore that with you because you can go on the website and learn who they are. But like when Hebrew grammar, we don't learn from the book, the grammar book, which we did start with, which made me crazy. And then we went to Psalms and Torah and Talmud, and that's how we learned the grammar, by dissecting it. And the way that we approach understanding Talmud, when I read all the sugya, and I was like, wow, some of them were really hard to get behind. They said things that I just, and then when you dig deep and you really understand and you take it apart and you have somebody who really knows what he's talking about, explain it to you, you're like, oh. You can't just read it and say, I don't like this because it says this, because it doesn't ever just say that. It says so much more. And it's like, you cannot take it for granted. You have to dig deep. And the teachers that we have there are the people who have guided me into directions that I find beyond exciting. So yeah, I love it. So
I want to get to the second part. Thank you, Shar. Really, I hate cutting people off. But Rose, when Rose was asking about securing interpreters, she wanted to know how interpreters then are able to translate the Hebrew and the what is needed either in services or in studying the Talmud or Hebrew. And so maybe Sarah, you can talk to that quick.
Yeah, you're right, Alan. That was a great start. You're 100% right. So that's why we have we have different interpreters. Like Paula, she learned different things, and she'll ask me, and we have another interpreter will ask me, do you want me to finger spell the Hebrew, the English for the Hebrew translation? Like Abba means father. So she would say ABA, Abba. She would be able to translate English. And a lot of times in my experience, the relationship between the interpreter and I developed and understand where we're coming. So like my interpreter would say, do you want me to do in English? Like if we're learning Kabbalah with Rabbi Goldhammer. Do you want me to do English or ASL? and I'll say both. Use your judgment. If it needs a picture, she'll use ASL. If it needs direction, English, which means exact English. I went to the store. That's exact English. If you do ASL, you go to the store, I went. So you create a picture. So it's like Alan said, it can be difficult to find an interpreter, but you could create, because they're professional and have exclusive certification, that they're able to work with you and figure out what works for you.
And the interpreters we use are veteran to us, and I think we've created a win-win.
The highest certification.
Yeah, we have, you know, the interpreters, with all due respect to, and I don't mean that as a cliche, have grown along with us. And so I think Sari can attest to the fact that we've conquered part of it. Sari, just talk briefly about the history of the deaf in Torah and Judaism, and then maybe we can...
Okay, well, let me explain. It's that simple. You know, my rabbi Goldhammer said, it's that simple in the Torah, in the Bible. Jewish deaf adults, and it was said inappropriately, so I'm not going to say it inappropriately, but deaf people and people with disabilities are not allowed or to study the Torah because they don't know. That's it.
Right.
Very sad.
Well, the deaf were also
And that's
equated-
why when I'm here, it's when I'm studying, and the whole point taking these classes is learning about everybody. So it's not just learning about a deaf temple, but it's learning you could do. Shai, you taught me something the other day, that you took a class on having congregations with deaf people, right? Like you learn that. I didn't take that class. I took a class on counseling. I took a class on family and Kabbalah and Hebrew, learning the grammar, because I want to serve families with children who are deaf and have disabilities, because in the Torah and in the Bible, it was said that deaf and people and disabled people were not allowed to study. That's not fair.
You know,
So that's why it makes it so special that we all can learn.
being the father of a deaf child, or many times I get things said to me that I always turn around and use as a teaching tool, because it's very hard to offend me. But people have often said it could be worse, she could be blind. Now, I always start by saying, look, I'm not comparing one condition to another. Helen Keller said, blindness keeps people from things, and deafness keeps people from people. And so if you ask my daughter, and I think Sari may agree, not being able to hear is not the number one issue that a deaf person faces. It's the communication barrier, and we are so dedicated and we are so appreciative of you being here and to listen or pay attention to us about the need for, yeah, it would be wonderful if everybody signed, but you know, at a certain age, children are obligated to learn the capital of 50 states. All we're asking is for them to learn 26 characters of the alphabet. If everybody knew the alphabet, that would be such a head start to allow deaf people a further comfort level. It's funny because now we're all wearing masks, and they came out with clear face masks. And it hasn't caught on, which surprises me. But when it's written about, it's written that the clear face masks are for deaf people. No, it's not for deaf people. It's for hearing people who are communicating with deaf people.
Thought I had it.
So,
I thought I had my mask. I wanted to show you.
right.
I didn't mean to leave. I'm sorry. That
I was saying that the clear masks are more for hearing people.
Yeah, we're using that at my job.
Right.
We use that for my job. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to teach or work with the students and be safe. So Alan, I support you 100% on that. I embrace you as a father, learning sign and being proud of your daughter and the deaf community.
Yeah, Sari, I want you to know that my grandson is 1 year old, and we are working very hard teaching him sign language.
Baby,
Yay!
baby sign.
That's beautiful to see. Deaf community and deaf baby sign. When I was a preschool teacher, we did the same thing, Char. We had no kids crying because they were telling us that they wanted to sleep.
They can tell.
They were telling us that they wanted to eat. They were telling us that we were done.
Yeah. Yep.
We have so much to share and so many stories to tell. And my God, I have so many stories to tell, but I'm not.
You're right, Alan.
Questions. Does anybody have any questions? And
somebody asked if the sign for Jew is still the beard.
Once again,
I'll ask Sari. Is this?
All right, so now not all signs are correct, but this is a sign for Jewish because of the long beard from Orthodox. That's literally what it means. Jewish.
But to answer that,
right, Alan? Am I correct?
Yes, but a lot of signs. You think about way back when there was no formal sign language.
Exactly.
Were made up by deaf people who mimicked what they saw in others. Right. So, for example, there are numerous signs that are politically incorrect today. The sign for Africa used to be a nose ring. It's an awful thing to say, but if you can imagine way back that it's the only way a deaf person could identify somebody from an African tribe. So now there's another sign for Africa, and it's the same with Jewish and the beard and Israel, and so signing keeps evolving as the political correctness.
And Rose asked a question again. She wanted to know if an interpreter had to have learn a specialized vocabulary to sign at a Jewish service. And
no, I don't know. I know. I don't want to talk for Paula or for our other interpreter, but they fingerspell. If there's a specific sign, you don't need a specific license for that. You should need to know the skill on how to be able to translate and understand. If you're going to do, for example, Abba, I'm going to give you an example again for Hebrew. It sounds like A, Ba, A, Ba. So my interpreter will go, Ba. I would assume that she has the highest advanced, as Alan was saying, as a daughter who's deaf and is an interpreter, in a advanced degree, you should already know that skill. And be prepared. Am I correct, Alan?
Yeah, the question was also asked, if Africa has changed, why hasn't Jewish changed? I'm sure in some circles, in some deaf circles, that they do sign a different sign for Jewish or so it's an ever evolving. So because it's 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. I would like to not necessarily conclude because I'm here. I'm not going anywhere if there's questions. But I would like to ask Tom Giller to tell you what's available for you at our seminary, not necessarily living in Chicago. So Tom, our esteemed chairman of the board.
Thanks, Alan, and thanks, Lily and Diana and everyone from Moishe House. I wish Moishe House had been around when I was a little younger. It would have been nice. But it just seems like an amazing organization and living situation for folks. And I want to thank Sari and Shar and Alan for sharing their insights. And I think you just got a sense from listening to Sari and Shar about what a special place and what love for the Hebrew Seminary there is. And everyone has sort of a unique story about how they got involved with the synagogue or the seminary. In my own case, my family had no connection to the deaf world. My younger son went with some friends one year when he was about 10 years old to the Purim Carnival at B'nai Shalom, and Rabbi Goldhammer has long, red, curly hair, and he would dress up every year as Queen Esther. And my son, Louis, came home after going to the Purim Carnival and said to my wife and I want to join that synagogue. So we ended up doing that. And then several years later, I was talking to the rabbi and I said, you know, I've always wanted to study Talmud. You know, I wasn't, didn't want to become a rabbi, but I wanted to learn something about Talmud. So he said, oh, we've got a wonderful Talmud professor. Why don't you take the class? And I ended up taking a series of Talmud classes, which were some of the most challenging, but also the most incredible classes, very spiritual. I ended up hiring one of the students in the seminary to help me learn Aramaic because we studied the Babylonian Talmud, you know, the dominant Talmud. And even though there's some similarities with Hebrew, I knew some Hebrew, but it's actually quite different Aramaic. So just an incredible place with offerings really for everyone, including, just to give you an example, Rabbi Goldhammer and one of his good friends who's a Baptist minister are teaching a class, an interfaith class on Psalms right now. And our classes, we have, a lot of our students are auditing students. They're not rabbinic students. So not only do our students sort of span the spectrum from Reform or unaffiliated to Orthodox, and same with faculty, but you know, we have non-Jewish students, we have auditing students, we have students with backgrounds who are physicians, nurses, teachers like Sari, singers like Shar. I'm not sure we've ever had a professional singer before as a student, but it's really an incredible place. And really, right now, obviously, we're not doing in-person classes, but one of the other things, we're doing everything on Zoom, but we have small classes. So you get to know your fellow students, you get to know your professors. It's a very intimate learning experience. So I'd really encourage you to check us out, go on our website, hebrewseminary.org. Contact us, come sit in on a few class sessions. Maybe you'll be interested in taking a course. And come sometime to one of our Friday night or Saturday morning Kabbalah services, which are all ASL interpreted. I think it'll be an experience, something we've never really experienced. I know something that our family loves when we go to services, not only is to listen to Shar, but to see our signing choir, Sari and our signing choir. It's like watching choreography with your hands. Very, very beautiful, spiritual, and meaningful.
For the services, you need to go to b'naishalom.org.
Right.
Right, as opposed to HebrewSeminary.org. For the services, where you will see Shar and Sari and our interpreter, not necessarily Paula, but we have one or two others who interpret for us regularly. I just want to make that clarification. We also have a YouTube channel, so B'nai Shalom, where you could see previous services. And of course, Rabbi Goldhammer is no kid anymore, and he is doing the services from his home, and but he is a remarkable individual. Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
No, that was really all that I wanted to say. Come and check us out, and you won't be disappointed. There are our founding board chair, who's no longer with us, Alan Crane, called us the miracle on Oakton Street. The seminary and synagogue are located on Oakton Street in Skokie. And it really is a miraculous place.
No, it's B'nai. It's B-E-N-E.
Right.
B'nai. I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's B-E-N.
Thank you.
Right.
Right. Just like any language, we're all subject.
Oh, can I say something?
Sure.
Really quickly, because we're ending very shortly, but we're so welcoming and so inviting that if you want to attend a service or a class, just to check it out, you can. I could speak for our seminary because you can check it out. Go on, ask for Alan, Tom. Can they ask for a link on the class? Because I know Rabbi Goldhammer would love it if he had people from Moishe House checking it out and checking out our Zoom services. In fact, we have one on Friday night at 7:30. So please,
Central.
don't be shy. Come on in.
Take a page from Sari's book. Don't be shy.
Don't be.
Yeah.
Seriously,
I want to thank
spread the
all of
word.
you. I would love to thank all of you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I just want to say on behalf of Hyde Park and Pittsburgh Moishe Houses, thank you so much. We've been like working since August, I think, to plan this program. So I'm so happy with how it turned out and that we got to make it happen. And I'm so grateful that we got to have all of you share.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know, it's I call myself an immigrant to the world of the deaf, as Shar and Tom, and it's a humbling.
You guys have a wonderful night. I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna go have a wonderful evening. Paula, thank you. I hope I see you again soon. Thank you, everybody. Love you all, and please check us out. You're welcome, Lily and Malik. You are welcome. I'll see you later. Have a wonderful holiday season. Thank you. Paula, I think you can leave if you want. Bye.
Well, we love our Sari. The world of the deaf, you know, it's interesting because I make the parallel often between a deaf culture and the shtetl Yiddish culture, because ASL, like Yiddish, are languages with no countries. They came out of, I don't know what other word to use besides oppression, but as the Jews were put in certain communities where they had to live, so were the deaf, and out of which came a social system, a cultural system, and of course, a language. And there's a great parallel between Yiddish and ASL in terms of history.
And maybe we can introduce a Yiddish class into the seminary. I would love that. Right? I don't know if anybody else, I'm scared to death that, pretty soon no one will speak Yiddish anymore. And I did once follow a couple that were speaking in Yiddish, and they thought I was like kind of creepy, and they were scared of me. And it's just like, no, I just want to hear. I just want to listen. I just want to drink it in, because my parents spoke Yiddish. So
my parents were survivors also, and they were from Frankfurt, and we were called Yekas. A Yeka is a person of German Jewish background. And sadly, we were not introduced to Yiddish. And I don't regret it. I don't blame it on my parents. It just
no, not in Germany. It wasn't
part of the German standoffish, which I've spent a lifetime trying to peel away. So that would be cool. Is there another question? There are a few.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out.
I see.
There's somebody wrote that there's a few organizations that are keeping Yiddish alive.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's I think it's in Amherst at University of Massachusetts, where there's the Yiddish library.
Yeah, the Yiddish library, I think it's either at Amherst or Hampshire. And there's also YIVO in New York City, the Worker Circle in Boston. There's a few different places.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
In my free time, in my spare time, I'm going to do that.
I'm sure you have lots of that.
I got some.
School and work.
And babysitting my 1-year-old grandson. Other than that, I got nothing going on.
When I mentioned before about learning the sign language alphabet, I can tell a deaf person a mile away. And I try, and I've done this so many times without interfering in their space, but just try to engage in conversation. And their eyes light up. I mean, deaf people are simply not used to hearing people signing, much less, and I will say, a father of a deaf child. And so it just gives me such a honor, really, to be able to sign. And just, the quintessential story that I have, which is why I think really try to distinguish deafness from other conditions, is when I worked in New York as a teenager, the building next door was the first building in the country that was specifically created for the blind. And it was called Associated Blind. It's on 23rd Street between 6th and 7th, still there. And it was just remarkable when people left the buildings with their dogs, how many people, just strangers, would come up and help them hail a cab or help them across the street. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen a deaf person on the corner trying to do the same thing, and everybody disappears. Because the language barrier, the communication barrier, is the main issue. So if you know anybody, we're laying our own groundwork here tonight for this type of program, if you know other Moishe houses, if you know other organizations that would like this type of presentation, please get a hold of myself or Tom, and we would be thrilled to do this again. I hope we provided some valuable information.
I was just thinking as a way of signing off, if you're ready, that
Nice
maybe
fun.
we could maybe do the Shema one more time and sign it together.
Sure.
Just cause.
Good. Great.
So I'm going to show. We'll show you them one more time quickly. It's Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, our God, Adonai Echad. So, you ready? Okay. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
You know, linguistically, let me just say, we can say we sign pay attention instead of hearing, but you know, the American English that we use is second or third generation English. When I talk about pay attention versus hear, it's more like listening, it's more like a shout out, like hear ye, hear ye. It's not just a biological word, the Shema. And so we're very proud to teach pay attention. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Hope to see you again.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, thank you. You're welcome, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Mom.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I enjoyed it. It made me want to live in Chicago so I could go to that shul and be in Shar's congregation.
Oh.
Where are you? Where are you? Where do you live?
Oh, I'm Lily's mother. I'm in Michigan, West Bloomfield. It's a suburb of Detroit.
Yeah, you know, there have to be, I've been there often, but you know, there have to be synagogues in the area that provide at least sign language interpreters, maybe monthly, or certainly Detroit has a major Jewish community. And
Yeah, there are. I just meant in terms of her energy and her spirituality.
you know,
She'll make a great rabbi.
yes, you know, our latest ordinee, Roberta Glick, who, when she became a rabbi, changed her name to Rivka, is a neurosurgeon.
Hmm.
And so she got involved in healing prayer and got involved in synagogue, and we ordained her last June a year ago. And that was an incredible ordination, as all of them are. But join us online and take a class and spread the word.
Thank you. Hi, Lily.
And I think we're going to let Paula go because
Talk to you
she
tomorrow.
worked really hard.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
thank you, Lily, for spearheading this. And I'm going to click end.
Yeah, sounds good. All right.
All right. You be well. Take care.
You all. Good night. Bye.